Palm Alexander, St. Louis American. The chair in front of me is empty, but in a few moments, it will be filled by a man that's been in his position since 1989. He works for the St. Louis Sports Commission. Many of you have heard his voice before. Now he's sitting in with us. We have Frank Viverito coming up next. All right, Frank, I appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. It's a slow time in St. Louis, not a whole lot going on. Yesterday, it was a big event at the Scottrade Center. It was sold out. WWE was in town. So talk to the people. How do they go about setting those events up? Do they got to go through you, or what channels do they go through to set that up?
Well, I work with the St. Louis Sports Commission, and we're a private, nonprofit, independent organization that works to make St. Louis a better place to live, visit, work, and play. So mostly our focus is on amateur events like the NCAA Wrestling Championships, and we do Olympic trials and gymnastics and figure skating and a lot of NCAA basketball and the like. And so no, the short answer is that Scottrade would not come through the Sports Commission for an event like WWE, but the longer answer is we work with Scottrade Center and the Blues on a whole variety of events and activities that are important to the Sports Commission and are important to the St. Louis region. So every event is a little bit different. Some events have competitive bids. Some events you just buy. Some events take place annually, and so everything's a little bit different. But in the case of yesterday's event, Sunday's event, that was not a Sports Commission activity.
The St. Louis hasn't had a Final Four in 10 years. Is that disturbing? Is that alarming? Or how do you guys go about that? Well,
we just finished out of the money for the next round of Final Fours. We learned that last November. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's alarming. It's kind of disappointing. It's not all that surprising, though, when you take a look at the competition. And that's a big issue for us, that a lot of times you'll find that our destination is absolutely is fine, absolutely, but it's not as good competitively, and so we have the Edward Jones Dome is a good facility, but it's not bigger, better, newer than the brand new facility coming online in Minneapolis, or the one in Dallas, or the one in Atlanta, or the one in Indianapolis. Our airport is perfectly acceptable, but it doesn't have as many flights as the one in Dallas, or the one in Houston, or the one in Atlanta. And so for all the factors that are important in bringing an event as big as a Final Four, St. Louis just doesn't finish ahead of so many other cities. Could we do the event and do it well? Sure we could. The 2005 Final Four was a great, wonderful event. People loved it. But it's that the other cities kind of move ahead of you in terms of the dollars, or the facilities, or the airport, or the destination. And so it's, in some cases, hard for us to compete.
Is there a perception about St. Louis with the violence that's been going on?
I think the perception of St. Louis as a sports destination is quite good. We continue to be successful with events like NCAA basketball, like NCAA wrestling. We're bidding for a couple of high-profile hockey events with the Blues, a high-profile soccer event with the Cardinals. We're taking a look at the Olympic swimming trials, and we've had some initial positive feedback from the folks at USA Swimming. And so St. Louis works really well for a lot of high-profile sporting events. Where it's challenging, as I say, are the absolute biggest events. And when you look at the perceptions, I think that the perceptions are actually still pretty good because of the fact that we have quality facilities, and especially because we have great partners and have been able to do so many successful events over the course of the last 20, 25 years.
I know you know about the situation with the Rams trying to get a stadium on the riverfront. How close have you been monitoring that situation, and then seeing how that could be an effect the St. Louis Sports Commission in a positive fashion?
Sure. I mean, we stay pretty close to the issue. One of the reasons for that is that the person who's our board chair and has been for 3.5 years is Dave Peacock, and Dave's the person who was appointed by Governor Nixon to co-chair the effort to finance the new stadium, and so in talking with Dave all the time, we're naturally close to the situation. But I say we're peripherally involved in that it would be a great opportunity for St. Louis and for the Sports Commission to look at a whole variety of new events that could be of benefit to the region. An MLS soccer team is one of those events. We would take a much closer look at a college football bowl game. We'd love to get the Missouri-Illinois football game back to St. Louis on an annual basis. And so, between soccer team, soccer special events, football special events, a facility that could be scheduled and booked a little bit more easily in advance that isn't a shared convention and NFL facility would add to our ability to be successful.
Let's say it gets done, and they make all the renovations, you got brand new hotels. What does that mean for the Scottrade Center when you're trying to schedule events like the NCAA?
Well, I think Scottrade Center would be a little bit like your house or my house. Is you build a new house, and then 20 years into it, you're starting to think about what kind of upgrades are we going to need to make. Do we need a new roof? Do we need a new furnace? What do we need? A new air conditioner? What's the how do we update the place to make sure that it's efficient and attractive? And I think that's a position that Scottrade is in now and it should be a regional dialogue to say, what can we do to upgrade and renovate the facility to make sure it stays competitive. That's the key. Is it a good facility? Absolutely. But is it better than the newer facilities in places like Kansas City or Oklahoma City or Louisville or Nashville? And you have to really keep the facility up to date in order to be able to bring in those big competitively bid events.
What do you do with the Scottrade Center? Now it's going on 22 years old, and like you said, you got to keep up damn near with the Jones. How do you do that without building a brand new arena every 20
Oh,
years?
yeah, and I think that we work closely with Tom Stillman, the owner of the Blues and Scottrade Center, and Chris Zimmerman, the CEO on the business side of the Blues and the building. And I mean, number one, Tom has more passion for his team and his sport than probably any other owner in any sport in America right now. And so they have a good sense of that building and a good understanding that some upgrades in the right places can make a big difference. The control room hasn't been updated in the 22 years since it's been open. The locker room facilities are kind of cramped. Can you maybe move the offices to a place on the footprint? And then use that space for facilities that sort of directly affect the success of the events that are in the building. And so it's taking a look at your needs, taking a look at the facility and saying, how can we cost effectively make some improvements that keep the facility competitive? And
then by keeping it competitive, that also includes the annual Missouri Valley Conference tournament.
Absolutely, and the Valley Tournament has been in St. Louis for 25 consecutive years. It's the second longest consecutive year event in a facility. The Big East has been at Madison Square Garden a little bit longer than the Valley, but that's a great event for St. Louis. It brings thousands of fans to town every year, fills the hotels in early March, and is an event that if we're not careful, is absolutely going to take a look at other cities in the Midwest. They did bid it competitively a couple years ago, and Chicago was interested, Kansas City was interested, Las Vegas was interested. And, we have to be on top of our game to make sure that we do what we can to generate support from St. Louis, fan support, financial support, facility support to keep that event.
The last region that was here, it had Kentucky and Wichita State, and it drew really big. A lot of people saying, how can they get back to bringing those kind of marquee games back to the St. Louis area? How do you guys go about doing that?
Well, the NCAA tournament games are bid competitively. The great thing is that we have a track record. We probably played as much or more postseason NCAA basketball in St. Louis. It's been played in any city. So the NCAA is comfortable here. We will work with both the Missouri Valley Conference and St. Louis University to submit those bids. We bid regularly for men's Final Fours, women's Final Fours, men's first and second rounds, men's regionals. And you kind of fit into an NCAA rotation of buildings that they're comfortable with and buildings that they know those events are going to be successful. We've been very fortunate that in the years that we've hosted NCAA tournament games, we've had Kentucky several times, we've had Kansas several times, we've had Louisville, we've had Illinois, we've had Michigan State a couple times, good regional draws that make those events very popular. And it's really a perfect combination of an event that brings a lot of visitors to town that spend a good bit of money, but also gives local fans the opportunity to participate and attend the event. So you have a good building, you have great track record, great partners, great experience, great location for an event, and so we continue to be successful with it.
Because a lot of people, and these are the average fans, and they don't really know how the mechanisms work. And then when they look at San Antonio getting a Final Four and St. Louis getting skipped over, and naturally you say, well, why would you want to go to San Antonio over St. Louis? I mean, how do you kind of explain that?
Well, some of it at times is geography. Some of it at times is weather. You think the weather might be a little bit better in a Phoenix or a San Antonio or New Orleans or an Atlanta on the first week in April. Some of it is sort of the geographical rotation, is when did you have it, when did they have it. They're spending a very significant amount of money to upgrade the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, and we haven't committed to facility upgrade yet at the Edward Jones Dome. I'm sure that the facility is going to be maintained and enhanced whether or not the new football stadium is built. But those plans were still indefinite when the Final Four bid was made, and so we were told it was a very, very close decision, coming down to St. Louis and San Antonio, and they edged us out this time.
Was you pleased with the turnout 10 years ago when the Final Four was played?
Oh yeah, it was fabulous. I mean, we were fortunate enough to have a regional team in the final, Illinois. They played a great game against North Carolina. They had a chance to win right at the buzzer. Yeah. The event hadn't been in St. Louis since, I guess, 1978. So, I mean, people really welcomed the event. People had a great time when it was here. And we also used it as kind of an imperative to get some things done downtown. And so St. Louis looked great at the time. And so, I mean, it was a home run by all counts. I remember that Bob Bowlesby, who's now the commissioner of the Big 12, was the chair of the men's basketball committee. And the first thing he said at the news conference the day after the Final Four here was, "I love a city that under-promises and over-delivers."
Wow.
And that's what we did. And 10 years later, people still have great memories of that event.
Last question. This is about Dave Peacock. You work closely with him. I've been monitoring, obviously, because I cover the Rams, what's going on in the other cities. and it looks like St. Louis has put forth the best plan possible. Can you handicap it? How do you see this forecasting in the future? I know this is not the first time you've been asked this.
You know, Dave, being chair of the sports commission, a little bit like winning the lottery. I mean, he's that good, and Dave's the perfect combination of this sort of Anheuser-Busch mentality, which is just simply get things done. Dave is his own positive nature. Dave knows all the players, you know, on the political side, on the business side, on the NFL side, on the media side, and so Dave's the perfect guy to be in that position. So I can say with great confidence that he's the one who's got the best chance of making this happen for St. Louis.
Because he's really a cool guy. And
he's the best.
And the thing about him is that no matter what Stan Kroenke does in the media, he always has a nice, quiet, solid counterpunch
Sure.
to whatever comes out of the West Coast.
And he knows that, you know, he knows what the things are that he can control, and he has great focus, and he's going to keep, you know, moving the ball down the field to get the financing in place to get this project in a position where it can be built for the benefit of St. Louis. I said he's, you know, relentlessly positive, so, you know, he says every day that, you know, we're just going to get this done. And, you know, he can't control what the NFL will do. He can't control what the Chargers or the Raiders or the cities of Oakland or San Diego or Mr. Kroenke or the Rams. You know, those are all out of his control. But what he can do is make a case for the stadium and then find a way to get it done.
Thank you so much, Frank.
It's a pleasure.